I think what's going to be more interesting is whether or not people actually own cars, because right now 95% of cars are not used on a daily. You use your car 5% of the time a day.
Yeah.
And so you've got all of this expensive, if you call it a car real estate, you've got these expensive car real estate. They're just sitting in parking garages or sitting in a driveway or a garage at home all day. And so I think ultimately, you could see a lot more shared ownership.
All right, guys, Cameron Johnson here, our first AmFest together. We were just talking about how fun it's been.
It's been great. Yeah, great turnout, huge event, lots of speakers. Everybody's having a good time.
Yeah, and you're not a beginner to entrepreneurship. Your first company at 9 years old.
Started my first business when I was 9 years old. It was a small business, a printing company, printing greeting cards and stationery. And it was when I was 12, I started selling Beanie Babies over the internet. You remember the craze, or you might not have even been born.
I caught the tail end. I heard of them. I never had one.
Okay. Well, it was right in my childhood. And so when I was 12, I started selling Beanie Babies over the internet. I was making $50,000 a year.
Crazy. And back then, that's decent.
It was
money.
a lot of money. It's still a lot of money, but
that'd probably be almost 6 figures right now.
Right, exactly. With inflation these days.
Yeah, inflation's nuts. So those kind of fell off though, right? Beanie Babies.
Yeah, fortunately, I migrated into some internet companies that were a lot larger. But I actually got out of the Beanie Baby business only because I was heading into middle school and I didn't want to be teased or known as the Beanie Baby kid.
Yeah.
So that's why I got out of the business. But I started an online advertising company called surfingprizes.com, and we had 200,000 customers in 60 countries.
When I was in middle school?
When I was 14, and we were doing 100,000 a week in revenue.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
So why didn't you just drop out at that point?
Well, I wanted to graduate high school. I did not plan to go to college because I always told my parents, Michael Dell didn't graduate college. Go down the list. Richard Branson didn't graduate high school. I would always cite all of these successful entrepreneurs. My parents wanted me to go to college. I went to Virginia Tech for one semester. I raised $10 million for a company I started, and then I dropped out.
Once you got the money.
I then dropped out.
Yeah, similar to me. I wasn't at those numbers, but once I had some revenue in my business,
yeah,
I think they're more receptive to dropping out.
Yeah, exactly. I had a plan at that point. It wasn't like a one-hit wonder.
Yeah. How tough was it raising that money?
So this would have been 1999. And so the dot-com craze was still going on. They would say 2000 was really the bust.
Yeah.
So, I actually went out to raise $5 million, and my partner and I ended up being offered $10 million.
Yeah.
We ended up turning down the venture capital though, because what we're good at is being entrepreneurs and sort of being CEOs. And if we had taken on the money, we would have been minority shareholders.
Yeah.
And we saw that as, oh, well, now we're just an employee. So sure, it sounds like a lot of money, but it's not going to us. It's to fuel growth.
Yeah.
And we thought that we wouldn't be calling the shots anymore, that the investors would. So we actually turned it down.
That makes sense. I'm too young to remember the internet bust. I was 4 years old in 2000. Talk to us about what happened then. Did you see that coming at all?
So I didn't necessarily see the internet bust coming, but the bust was mainly companies that had no revenue. And so it was, a pets.com back in the day and all of these different .com one-hit wonders that were raising a ton of money, but they had no revenue. And so that was really what the bust was primarily. My businesses were always profitable. I had 12 before I was 21, millionaire before out of high school.
Yep.
They were all profitable, but that's because our expenses were always low.
Right.
I didn't go out and you see all these companies at the time that were getting these really expensive, huge office buildings. We didn't do any of that. We were teenagers starting a company virtually. My two partners in Surfing Prizes, we had never even met in person when we started the company. So we built a multi-million-dollar company when we were 14, and we never even met in person.
That's nuts. I think operating lean is good. I was never a fan of companies raising pre-revenue unless they absolutely needed the money.
Right. But you need to be in some specialized industry, healthcare or something else that's unique to be able to raise money pre-revenue. Just doesn't make sense.
But just the psychology of using someone else's money is different than how you're going to use your own.
Totally. And I always, you respect your own money because you worked hard to earn it.
Right.
And so that's why I've still to this day, never taken outside investor money.
You never raise money even to this day, which is impressive because you're running some huge companies.
Yeah, exactly.
How many companies do you have right now running?
So I'm an investor in probably 75 plus startup companies, and they're not all startup now. Hopefully they've all grown it to some level. And then I own a chain of car dealerships in Virginia called the Magic City Auto Group. And so, yeah.
Yeah, you're a fourth generation car dealer, right?
Fourth generation car dealer. So I took the proceeds that I had made from my internet companies and I said, I preached everything starting up as go lean, right? Start from, at the time it was my childhood bedroom when I started my business. But keep your overhead low and then it's so much easier to reach profitability.
Right.
Now I do the complete opposite of that. We have really, really expensive assets, 50 plus acres of land across our dealerships, hundreds of employees, the exact opposite of everything.
Shout out to today's sponsor, Prolon. If starting the year with a fast feels a little daunting, you're not alone. There's an entire community of individuals wanting to make a meaningful decision in their health, just like you. This is what makes group fasting so powerful and why I'm joining in on Prolon's January Longevity Challenge, which is a coach-led program to set you up for fasting success. Prolon's fasting mimicking diet is a revolutionary plant-based nutrition program that nourishes the body while making cells believe they're fasting. I got all 5 boxes here and I'm starting day 1 tomorrow. It's researched and developed for decades at USC's Longevity Institute and backed by leading US medical centers. It helps promote healthy blood sugar, enhanced skin appearance, fat loss, and improved energy and focus. It all starts with their 5-day program, which contains snacks, soups, and beverages designed to keep the body in a fasting state. No guesswork or planning required, which is a relief after a busy holiday. If you guys are ready to make 2025 your healthiest year yet, order your Prolon 5-day kit at prolonlife.com/DSH. And they're offering Digital Social Hour listeners 15% off their 5-day nutrition program. Use the code DSH at prolonlife.com/DSH.
Thing I did growing up.
Yeah.
But of course, in the car business, that's what you got to do. And it's fun. So what I did was I took those proceeds and I bought out all of our family members. Got it about 15 years ago.
Nice. You probably meet some cool people in that space, at least, though.
I've met a lot of cool people that are other successful entrepreneurs growing up my entire life.
Yeah.
And then also in the car business, there's a lot of change happening in the car business now too, which is good.
Yeah. So what are your predictions with that? With electric, like every year it gets more and more, right?
Yeah. So EVs are only growing at a really rapid pace. They've slowed a little bit in the past year, but that I'm sure that'll pick back up. What's really interesting is I think what's next with self-driving, and we're here in Phoenix where they have Waymo.
Yeah.
And I took a Waymo back from dinner last night. I've done it many times. I've been in Phoenix and I think it's going to be interesting what happens ultimately with car ownership. So forget whether it's an electric or it's an ICE engine, internal combustion engine. I think what's going to be more interesting is whether or not people actually own cars, because right now 95% of cars are not used on a daily. You use your car 5% of the time a day.
Yeah.
And so you've got all of this expensive, if you call it a car real estate, you've got these expensive car real estate. They're just sitting in parking garages or sitting in a driveway or a garage at home all day. And so I think ultimately, you could see a lot more shared ownership.
Yeah, I love that you're being proactive about that as a car dealer. That must worry a lot of car dealers, but some might not even be aware of that trend.
Well, and I like to look at it from the other angle too. So if I'm not selling to the end user, well, maybe I'm the one that owns the cars that is leasing them in the fleet to when people need them, or where maybe I'm the guy that owns the Waymos that are out on the roads.
Yeah. I took it in San Fran. Is that Waymo in San Francisco?
San Fran is, yep. And then they're also here in Phoenix.
I couldn't believe it, dude. I took it to dinner, took it back to the bridge. It was nuts.
It's a third of the price.
Yeah. It felt unreal.
Yeah, it really does.
I literally got in, no one was there.
Right. I know. You're like talking to yourself.
It's like AI is really advancing, man.
Totally.
Yeah. Are you investing in AI companies right now?
I've invested in a number of AI companies. And then you've seen obviously the boom. I look at AI as almost similar to the 1999, 2000 .com boom and .com bust, only because it's hard to know what to invest in. It's hard to know what's actually going to stick. And as much as we talk about ChatGPT and all the names that Gemini and all the ones that we can name, who knows what's ultimately going to be, the one that everybody ultimately uses.
Yeah. Is that why you invest in so many different companies? You're kind of hedging your bet.
You're trying to hedge the bet and spread it around.
Yeah. Because if you invest in 5 and none of them hit.
Yeah. And what I try to do too is I'm usually trying to bet on the entrepreneur themselves, right? Bet on the jockey, not the horse.
Yeah.
And so over time, I feel like I've gotten better and better at that.
Have you looked into the alternative media podcast space at all?
As an investment, I haven't, but I'm obviously aware and seen some of these deals that have gotten done.
Crazy deals, right? Last week, Hot Ones, the show where they eat the spicy wings, 82 million.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's nuts, just for eating wings, and they weren't even profitable. That's the crazy part to me.
Right.
They were
I
losing
don't want to
money.
call that a bust, but a potential bust. But I mean, that's an expensive investment for something that is not profitable.
Yeah. I mean, they got the views, so if they tie the right product or service to, I don't know how many views they're getting a month, but it's a lot.
Right.
I could see it maybe in ROI, but it's a tough one.
Yeah, that's your space.
Yeah. I mean, it's good for me.
It's definitely good for you. All these deals are good for you.
Yeah, these Spotify deals, Call Her Daddy, Rogan.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you listen to any shows?
I do.
Which ones?
Rogan for sure. And soon I'll be listening to yours on a regular basis.
Let's go.
Yeah, I've gotten familiar with your background and amazing.
Yeah, it's hard to beat Rogan though. I still listen to Rogan almost every day.
Yeah, he's great.
I mean, a lot of his guests come on and I'm like, I'm constantly studying him. He's the GOAT in my opinion.
He is. Yeah, he's awesome.
2,500 episodes. Well, what's next for you, man?
What's next for me? You know, I've been asked this question since I started my first business I had 30 years ago. And, you know, I always say, people used to ask, what's your favorite company that you've ever had?
Yeah.
And I always say the one I haven't started yet.
Love it.
Because I'm always looking for something new and whatever the next challenge is.
Do you still have that same hunger you did when you were in your 20s starting out?
I have the same hunger, but I don't know that I have the same risk appetite. Okay. So I like to take risks, but calculated risks. Whereas when you're younger, and you're living in your parents', you know, your room at your parents' house or in your college dorm room. That's why I always encourage young people to start a business, is because you can take all the risk in the world and your house isn't going to get foreclosed on. Your car's not going to get repossessed.
Right.
And you've got that safety net. Of course, I've got a nice safety net these days, but my risk appetite's probably changed.
I love it, man. Yeah. Where can people find you?
CameronJohnson.com and, you know, a quick Google search.
Awesome. Check them out, guys. Thanks for coming on.
Cool. Thank you.
See ya.